Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, November 10th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. On today's show, Star columnist Sam McDowell and beat writers Jesse Newell and Herbie Teope tell me why I'm wrong about my feeling that Chiefs fans should be more concerned about the team's efforts against the Titans than in the game against the Bills earlier this season. Keep in mind the Chiefs beat the Titans but lost to Buffalo. We have plenty more to say about the Chiefs, including how they're handling the running back situation. Plenty of good stuff on today's show that started as a SportsBeat Live. Let's get started. Hey, good morning. Welcome to SportsBeat Live. We're coming to you from Kansas City, where it's going to turn from fall to winter today. And we are talking Chiefs as we always do, and we want to talk Chiefs with you. So send us your questions and comments, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. We have Sam McDowell and Herbie Teope here, looking for one or two more to join us at some point. We'll see what happens, but mostly we want to hear from you. So again, send us your questions, comments. We'll talk Chiefs, who play the Jaguars at noon on Sunday at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. So, guys, here's the thing. I do want to talk about the Jaguars, and we will talk about the Jaguars. But, Sam, I'm glad you're here because you were not part of the discussion we had previously. And I want you guys to tell me why I felt better about the Chiefs after their loss to the Bills than I did about their victory over the Tennessee Titans. Does that make any sense to you? If I'm a Titans fan, I'm feeling good about the way that game. I didn't like the loss, but feeling confident about the way that the Titans game planned and schemed and just played against the Chiefs. Listen, I know that we talked about it a lot after the game, but the more I think about it, the more I have trouble with the game. I'm glad Jesse has joined us here. So Sam, am I wrong? Am I off base? Is this a bad take from me?
I really think that this is a sort of a test of optimism versus pessimism here, because the pessimism is just how bad the Chiefs were for 2.5 quarters in that game. And the pessimism is I really think that this is the type of scheme, the type of defense that the Chiefs are going to see in January. There's only a few teams that I think are capable of playing it. You know, the physical man-to-man on the back end, only rushing 4 all day. But it's been effective, the teams who have. So the good news is the Chiefs saw it, and we know Andy Reid adjusts well to what he sees throughout the season. You know, I think it was a misconception last year that the Chiefs never adjusted to the cover 2. They did. They saw something different in the AFC Championship against the Bengals, which more resembled actually a little bit what we saw from the Titans. The other piece of good news is I thought Patrick Mahomes played much better against it than he has in the past, against these no-blitz defenses. And the supporting cast just didn't help him at all. You know, I mean, you go through that game and try and think of the guys who played well offensively. Like Patrick Mahomes raises his hand. Maybe Noah Gray does too, but not a lot of other key players are saying, yeah, I played really well on Sunday. So I do think it could be a case of a bad game. But like I said, I wrote, people talk about a playoff-like atmosphere. This was a playoff-like game plan from the Titans. This is more of what the Chiefs will see moving forward. And for a while now, we've been interested to see how teams will defend the Chiefs and these new weapons. And I think now we have our answer.
So take that game plan and execution by the Titans on the defensive side and give them Ryan Tannehill. And I don't care where the game is played. I just don't like I don't think I'd like what I would see there. And I don't know. That game just left me puzzled by the Chiefs. And Sam, I think you're absolutely right about how really few others came to play. Travis Kelce among them, who had several drops in the game. I thought Juju Smith-Schuster actually played pretty well for the game, but the offensive line played poorly. Trey Smith probably had his worst game as in Chiefs uniform. So just totally bothered by what the Titans did to them. Again, I think if you're a Titans fan, you feel the way you do. You feel probably the same way Chiefs fans felt after the Buffalo game. We play them again, and Chiefs have had a habit in the Patrick Mahomes era of beating teams in the playoffs that defeated them during the regular season. In the Super Bowl year, both the teams that they played in the playoffs that year, the Titans and the Houston Texans had defeated the Chiefs in the regular season, and of course last year Buffalo came to Arrowhead and walloped the Chiefs, and Chiefs got it back in the playoffs. So I think that was part of my thinking after Buffalo, and so anyway, we'll leave it at that and get on to the business of the Jaguars. Herbie, who's I'm a little concerned about this Mecole Hardman abdomen injury. How did that happen, and what's the status on Mecole Hardman?
That's an interesting question there, because we don't know when it happened. He did finish the game against the Titans, showed up yesterday for practice. Well, we went out there, and all of a sudden he's there. Andy Reid says he's dealing with some abdominal soreness. They're running some tests. So he's going through an evaluation right now. The good news is, you have Kadarius Toney, who only played 9 snaps against the Titans, but Reid has emphasized this week at least twice already, Monday and Wednesday, that they do plan to work him in more. So if Hardman misses practice on Thursday, and then that leaves his status in doubt, they are covered with depth.
Yeah, they are. Hardman certainly has played well these last couple of games. At San Francisco, he was terrific and caught a couple of big moments against the Titans as well. Let's stay with the position and talk a little bit about Kadarius Toney. Did he play more than we expected him to in the opener? My thought when the Chiefs acquired him was this was a guy that it'd take him a while to get up to speed, and on the first snap, the ball goes to him, and he actually makes a good play later in the game. So, you think we'll see more and more of him blending into the offense, Jesse?
Well, I think right now he's basically a gadget player, because you basically have a few plays you can run for him. So you're not giving him the full playbook. There's no way to ingest the full Andy Reid playbook. I mean, the best comparison we have is basically Josh Gordon from a year ago, right? I mean, did he ever really kind of get in with the offense? I mean, right now, is Skyy Moore really in with the offense? So I think it's a pretty difficult task to ask him to do a lot of things for this offense moving forward. But back to your previous point, Blair, I think there's just different ways to look at this. I mean, you can frown about it if you want to, if you're the Chiefs. But, I just covered a team in college basketball that a month before the season ended lost at TCU, and the sky was falling, and they couldn't guard, and they couldn't do anything. And a month later, they won the championship. Things happen. Sometimes games go your way, sometimes they don't. And this was a huge week for the Chiefs. I mean, the Bills lost. The Chiefs won a close game, however they got there. And now Josh Allen might be out for a while. And all of a sudden, we're going from, okay, the Chiefs are going to have to go to Buffalo. They're going to have to win a game in the AFC Championship, to if Josh Allen is out a couple weeks, the Chiefs are probably the AFC favorite again. And if they're the AFC favorite, they're probably pretty close to the Super Bowl favorite if you look at them and the Eagles potentially meeting up in the Super Bowl. So this was a big week for the Chiefs, and it just means that things can change over time. I mean, I expect, Kadarius Toney to be better for them late. I expect Skyy Moore to be better for them late. I expect the weapons to be better as the Chiefs move forward, and for some of their defenders who are young, like Leo Chanel and George Karlaftis, to be better in weeks 16, 17, 18. So, you can look at this a lot of different ways, but this was a big week for the Chiefs if we just kind of zoom out on this and look from a really big picture perspective, and that the season was kind of going to wind down, it looked like, to the Chiefs being a 4-point underdog playing at the Bills in the playoffs. Most likely that was the scenario to get to the Super Bowl, and things might have switched with that Josh Allen injury and the Chiefs sort of holding serve at home. So we'll see how it plays out over the next few weeks, but I think it was a big development and a big week for the Chiefs, pretty much no matter how they got there.
You're just so positive, Jesse. I like that. I like that about you. When the Chiefs tend to have a stinker during the season under Mahomes, you can suggest it was the Colts game earlier this year The Colts, by the way, with new coach Jeff Saturday, what an interesting development that is. And then, I can think that we talked about both the Colts and the Texans game in the Super Bowl year, and Raiders game at Arrowhead in the Super Bowl loss season. So they've had those types of games. I don't remember thinking after those games that, man, these Chiefs are in trouble. There seemed to be a reason, right? They either turned the ball over a ton, or they had some injuries that, especially in that Super Bowl year, Tyreek Hill was out for the Colts game, and there were just some reasons why. But I just felt differently after this one, and they won, and the Chiefs won the game. They didn't lose it. So I think other AFC teams are looking at Buffalo, the situation of Buffalo, the same way the Chiefs are as well.
Yeah, and Blair, they did have some games like that had that feeling last year. I mean, there was over the middle of the season, they barely beat Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. They really struggled against the Giants on Monday Night Football. They struggled to beat the Cowboys, who were missing all of their weapons. And I think that absorbed sort of the similar feeling, because the reason was the same, which is the Chiefs were struggling to figure out what defenses were doing against them. And that's the sense that you had on Sunday, was it was more of what the Titans were doing to them that, can be replicated. Again, you've got to have the personnel to do it, but the teams that have the personnel to rush with 4 and have the big guys up front typically are the teams you're going to see late in the season and into the postseason. So I totally understand the sentiment. And maybe and listen, it is reason to be a little bit more concerned than maybe you were going into that game. But I just think you give Andy Reid half a season to figure that out. Like, I do think the Titans did them a little bit of a favor by putting that on film. The Chiefs are going to have a lot of time to adjust to it now.
All those things you said, Sam, too, all those stinkers you talked about, that was after the Chiefs were 3-4 last year. And again, we're talking about a team that ended up, again, they blew it. We know they blew it in the AFC Championship game, but we're talking about a team that was going to be a 7-point favorite against Cincinnati at home, and then going to be a 4 or 5-point favorite against the Rams in the Super Bowl. So all those things that happened, I guess, it's sort of first world problems for the Chiefs. I mean, they're a really good football team. With the Bills taking a step back potentially without Allen, they could be considered the best football team. And the home field thing is really important, I think, because I do think at full strength the Bills are better than the Chiefs. But if you play that game at Arrowhead, you're starting to gain back 3 or 4 points. That becomes, as we saw earlier, like a pick 'em or a Bills by 1 rather than a Bills by 5 or 6. So the Chiefs are narrowing that gap in a weird way. But all the same, if Allen's out a few weeks, then all of a sudden you're looking at this and going, okay, the Bills, we thought we're going to win that game, might lose this game. And for all those things we talk about, the 4 defensive linemen and the Chiefs having to figure out offensively how to adjust. I mean, you look up, the Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites against the Jaguars again this week. Their schedule lightens up down the stretch. So a lot of reasons to still like the Chiefs. And they do have the ultimate cheat code. I mean, having Patrick Mahomes on your team is really, really valuable. And they won that game last week because he just kind of willed them and figured out a way. But they get to have him as long as he's not hurt for all these games. So it's a really enviable spot for them to be in.
Blair, the one odd piece of this is that you probably feel better after that game than the last 2 times that you saw the Titans in the regular season. I mean, particularly last year, that's as bad as I think we've ever seen Patrick Mahomes look. The year before was the game in Tennessee where you felt like if one of 8 or 9 things go right at the end of the game, they probably win that game as well. And that was in the right after Patrick Mahomes had come back from an injury. So I do think the Chiefs have been in this situation before, particularly against this team. I was interested to see the Titans were only favored 2.5 against the Broncos, because it's sort of the betting market saying they thought Sunday's game was more about the Chiefs than it was the Titans then.
Right. Hey, we got a couple good questions I want to get to, but first, the interesting matchup in this game, at least for me, is Andy Reid versus Doug Pederson. It's only happened one other time. Of course, Doug Pederson was with Andy Reid for many stretches of his career, including the first maybe 7 seasons here in Kansas City. Herbie, you got a chance to talk to Doug Pederson yesterday with other reporters, and what did Doug say about his matchup with Andy Reid, and also what is Andy Reid seems to have enough success against his former assistant coaches?
Yeah, coming into Sunday, Andy Reid is 17-9 against his former assistants. His coaching tree is pretty vast. Ron Rivera, Sean McDermott, Harbaugh, Leslie Frazier, Brad Childress, and now Doug Pederson. Pederson has been with Andy Reid since his playing days in Green Bay, as a backup quarterback. Then he followed Andy Reid to Philadelphia as a backup quarterback, actually started before McNabb. And then when his playing career was over, coached high school football, and then he joined Andy Reid's staff in 2009. Then he followed him here. Doug Pederson says, hey, look, I owe a lot to Andy Reid. I picked up so many one-on-one sessions, so many meetings they spent together. They consider them, both the men are, they consider each other good, close friends. But this is going to be a fun matchup. Doug Pederson is well aware of the record. Yesterday he joked, and I asked him about it. I was like, what goes behind that success? And Doug Pederson quipped, well, he's just a better coach. Of course, he was joking about it, but, he went into some of the things that Andy Reid has taught him and he's carried with him throughout his coaching career. So Reid, as we all know, he has deep ties with a lot of his former staffers, and they all always credit him for their success.
Only took Doug Pederson a couple of years to get the Super Bowl victory. Took Andy considerably more time than that. But each have won a Super Bowl, and there'll be a lot of good feelings on the field before the game on Sunday when those two meet. So, that was an interesting story, and I'm glad Doug Pederson availed himself this week to reporters here. Okay, you are on SportsBeat Live talking Chiefs with the folks in the media who cover them best, and I want to get to a couple of questions, good questions. Diane asks about Skyy Moore. Jesse, is there a little concern about the development of Skyy Moore? We certainly have concerns about his punt return prowess, but as a wide receiver, what do we make of Skyy Moore's progress to date? And I did expect a little bit more production from him so far. Is he one of those guys that Sam said, actually you said this, Jesse, about being better in week 16, 17 than he is now?
I think last week was the most concerning week for Skyy, to be completely honest, because I've been on the Skyy Moore bandwagon. You look at the grades and some of the people who study the film. He has great releases. He's been able to get open. It's just been kind of a snap count thing. He hasn't been out there that much, but I'm more concerned because he had one of his worst games this past week. Plus they added Kadarius Toney. And as you mentioned, Blair, they got Kadarius Toney snaps. Like, they got him touches, force-fed him that, and there's nothing to keep them from doing that with Skyy Moore. You know what I mean? Like if you bring in a guy this week and decide to use him for those snaps, you could have done that with another guy who you've had for longer. So I think this is the most concerning, or the most concerned I've been about Skyy Moore. Now, big picture, you look next year, Chiefs have a lot of guys they're probably going to have back. McCole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney will be, Skyy Moore will be, but potentially next year he could step into a much larger role, and maybe this is sort of like a redshirt year for him. But I did have high hopes for him toward the end of the season. I think this one gives me more pause with him, because that was a game, as Sam said earlier, Tennessee was playing a lot of man coverage. They were playing with their four rushers, but Mahomes is holding it. Why was he doing that? There was not separation, and Skyy Moore was part of that problem for the Chiefs, along with other guys in there who were sort of getting mauled by Tennessee, but sort of just not getting open on their own too. So, I have more concerns about Skyy Moore now than I did a week ago. I still think over time he will be a good player, but I think it is right and okay to question right now what the Chiefs think about him, especially with having Kadarius Toney now and trying to get him implemented in the offense.
I don't see Skyy. Maybe this was happening earlier. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see Skyy used on the jet sweeps and the end arounds, the stuff that McCole Hardman is, got into the end zone 3 times with against San Francisco. It's just, he was one of those guys in training camp we talked a lot about and had kind of big expectations for. Just hasn't materialized for him yet. So Rob asked if Andy saves certain plays and strategies for later in the season. I think that he absolutely does. I think his success in November and December speak to some different looks and schemes from the Chiefs in the latter part of the year. I also would think that 6 straight division titles suggest that as well, that the Chiefs don't we always talk about how well they start a season and Andy Reid and how good he is early, but he's when you're 12-5 every year or something like that, I think they spread it out pretty well. And it's funny, I just thought about this, that some of those sort of stinker games that I thought about earlier never seem to happen at the end of the year. Those all happen in the first couple months of the season. So I think that he's got a pretty large playbook, and it doesn't use it all. Doesn't use it all early in the year. So yeah, I think that he's got he leaves some in the playbook for later in the year.
The oddity, Blair, is a lot of times, like when we look back at the end of those seasons, we credit the defensive improvement for the reason the Chiefs get better late in the year. And this defense, I do think, is ahead of where the other Steve Spagnuolo defenses have been since 2019. I mean, the Titans were playing Malik Willis at quarterback. I understand that, but you still got to stop them. And they allowed 1 first down in the last 10 drives of that game. Like, the reason the Chiefs have 500 yards of offense is because they run 91 plays because the defense is off the field and 3 or 4 plays every time. So that would be one point of optimism, I guess, if you're looking at that from the big picture. But when you talk about wide receivers, the one guy we really don't talk a ton about is Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And he's the one guy who's here for a long-term contract. I mean, he's here for 3 years. And I think if you were a Chiefs fan, the guy you should be rooting for most to be productive right now is the guy who's going to be here 3 years. And there's some metrics out there. ESPN does an analytical look at how frequently receivers get open. And there's no receiver in the NFL that has run more snaps that gets open less percentage of the time than Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And those defenses that Jesse and I have mentioned, the man defense, part of it is because one of your top 2 receivers cannot get open against it. And so that's a problem that, could be more longer lasting than some of these other things we've discussed.
And just real quick, taking kind of the big picture view of this, I totally agree with you, Sam, about MVS. And it wasn't like he didn't get snaps. I think I saw that he had snap counts were somewhere in the 70s when they ran 90 plays. So he was out there a lot, only targeted once, had that 1 catch. A lot of the problems Mahomes is looking for open receivers. It's that they did not create separation in this particular game. It feels like we oscillate, don't we? Like, they can't face man coverage, but the numbers say they're really good against man coverage. And then they have a game like San Francisco where they just constantly beat man coverage. And then you come back to Tennessee and they can't beat it. Again, part of this, I think, is Tennessee just completely mugged them at the line of scrimmage. And basically it kind of had to look a little bit of a Bill Self defense back about 15 years ago where you beat people up, you play physical, and you basically force the officials to blow their whistle or throw their flag 30 times a game. And at some point, it's really hard to do so. You saw it on the 2-point conversions. I mean, the third 2-point conversion, Tennessee held worse than did the first 2. But the officials are just sitting there like, are you going to make me throw another flag on you on Travis Kelce? I mean, how many times are we going to half distance this to the goal until you stop holding? But the bigger picture, that is the Skyy Moore thing. And with Skyy Moore, I do want to at least mention when it comes to the snap count trends, from a rookie standpoint, if you look at some of the numbers out there, how much he's played, most closely lines up with Tyreek Hill as a rookie. Like out of all the receivers that Andy has had, how they integrated Tyreek Hill in the offense and got him going. Now, there's dissimilarities there. Tyreek Hill was a 6th-round pick. Skyy Moore more expected of him, but it kind of goes back to the big picture view, which just because he hasn't succeeded week 9 into his rookie season does not completely keep him from being a really good player down the line. But that could be a solution as well if you're talking about that, Sam, because Skyy Moore, with his releases, with what we've seen from him on some of his routes, he can beat man coverage. It's a matter of getting him more comfortable and being able to be in sync with Patrick Mahomes. That has not happened as much lately, and that's why there has to be a little bit of concern about the receivers, at least this point in the season.
Yeah, we spoke about this earlier, the great value of players like Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, and of course Tyreek Hill was when the play broke down, they all kind of knew where to go. And how many of Pringle and Robinson's receptions came from plays that were when they weren't the primary guys, and they were the safety valves for Mahomes. We're not seeing that with MVS or Skyy Moore yet. And you did reference Jesse is the MVS catch. That was a really nice catch he made, falling backwards, picking the ball basically off the ground before it hit the turf. and kept a first down reception. So it was a really nice play from MVS. Okay, Sarah Ann asks about Ronald Jones, and a topic near and dear to Jesse's heart. But it also allows us to talk about the running back position. That's been a big issue this week. Chiefs running backs 14 yards on 12 carries against the Titans. We spoke about the offensive line play was, I thought, substandard against Tennessee, and of course Tennessee had a lot to do with that. But how concerned should the Chiefs be with the running back production? And is the three-headed running back the way to go? And is this happening because no one has really emerged, or is this part of the game plan? Let's just untangle running back here, and what how concerning is this for the Chiefs? Sam, why don't you start off?
Well, these are the guys they got. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's sort of, usually running back doesn't adopt the cliche of if you have more than one, you don't have a starter, but it does for the Chiefs. Like, if they had a guy, they'd be playing him. Andy Reid typically likes to play a guy and, occasionally cycle in somebody else. So to see him rotate three guys pretty evenly suggests that he doesn't have a ton of confidence in either. And I think if you ask for a scouting report on any of these three running backs, the first thing you would do is mention their weaknesses, not their strengths. And so that's a concern. With Jerick McKinnon, though, I think it's become clear that he's the guy when the Chiefs are in crunch time. And he's a veteran. He's a more veteran guy than Pacheco and Edwards-Helaire. And it leads me to believe that they're trying to save his health for the postseason. We saw, last year he was the guy in the playoffs. And I still think it could potentially be trending that direction to where the Chiefs just don't want to overuse him in the regular season because they think they will have to use him in the postseason because they're not getting a lot out of Pacheco and Edwards-Helaire. When you look at Pacheco in particular, there's this, idea that he's this physical runner because he does run hard, but he doesn't break tackles. He doesn't force missed tackles a lot. Edwards-Helaire doesn't either. They both often struggle just to go to just to get the yards that are available on a play. I mean, forget getting the yards over expectation. They struggle to get the yards that are expected on a play. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of a storyline that I think I've been saying since preseason that I didn't like the running backs that they have, and we're still there. And the offensive line I know didn't have a great day against Tennessee. Few offensive lines do. But they still have been a top 10 run blocking offensive line throughout the course of the season, and the running back production just hasn't matched that.
Yeah, I mean, to get to Sarah's point real quickly, how does Rojo's request of a trade impact the locker room? Well, it's not good. I mean, that's the bottom line. You want everybody pulling the same direction, and I think the best teams out there are the ones where everybody understands their individual role and kind of buys into the team aspect. Having said that, I mean, Rojo might have a point at this point. You know what I mean? Like, he's probably looking at it the same way we are. It's sort of like, can it be any worse? Like, can he come in and be worse than what they've had? Now, I think Tennessee is an outlier because I went back and looked, Sam, and Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith both had their worst run blocking grades via PFF of their entire careers. So I'm putting this less on the running backs. I know there was a carry from Isaiah Pacheco where he did not hit the hole right, did not follow the correct block, and got stuffed at the line. But most times we're complaining about those guys having 4 yards blocked for them and getting 4 yards. This was not. This was getting stuffed at the line. I put this more on the offensive line, and I don't know how to feel. Like, maybe it looked like there was some sickness going around the Chiefs locker room. Maybe the offensive line was affected by that. Trey Smith previously had his best run blocking game of the season against the 49ers, has a bye week, and then has his worst. So I don't know how to feel about him. Obviously, his sophomore year has not gone as well as his freshman year in the pros, but he was really good last year, and he has battled injuries this year. But as far as the running backs go, yeah, I mean, I think they trust McKinnon. I think he's the security blanket. I think they believe that he can pass block and go out in routes. So I think they trust him for all situations. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now is their best pass catcher out of the backfield. We kind of forget that because he was really good this year earlier on at running those angle routes and getting yards upfield, but they haven't utilized him much with that. I think Pacheco is their best long-term guy. You mentioned his size and his strength. I think he's he's like, if you're not going to play Ronald Jones, he's the best Ronald Jones equivalent they have on the roster, but they don't trust him in pass protection and they don't trust him in the passing game. So what that leaves is when they get down, they go back to the security blanket, and that's been Jerick McKinnon. I don't know that he's their best back. I don't. I mean, I'm just being honest with you guys. I think he's a dude. I think he's a guy, but that probably describes the room at this time, which is nobody's emerged and nobody has really just taken that role by storm when really there's been all this opportunity for somebody to emerge and really stake claim on the role. So it's kind of left them cycling, but I would put most of this last game on the offensive line rather than the Titans, and that's something very rare that we would talk about when the Chiefs when it comes to run blocking because typically they're really good.
I will add, and I think, Sam, you'll back me up on this, that when it comes to the postseason, Andy Reid tends to have led with one back. They may be sharing snaps now, but whether it's Darrell Williams or Damian Williams, any in the past playoff seasons, it's one back that gets the lion's share of the load, and so maybe you guys are right that this is just a you're saving wear and tear on your backs by using them the way that they're being used now. And at the end, one back will emerge.
I agree with that, Blair. And that's why I think that McKinnon's most likely to be the guy, because the only guy you're worried about saving wear and tear on is the guy who's been in the league for 9 years. Like Isaiah Pacheco's a rookie. I think he improves with the more snaps he gets. So it doesn't make sense to save that there. But the times where you go to one back in a game where they stop cycling through guys are late and close, and it's always Jerick McKinnon. And so I just think it's trending towards him being the guy in the postseason. And, you want to look at the backs as a whole. He was a free agent in the summer still. Like, nobody was coming after Jerick McKinnon to sign him, and then the Chiefs came and scooped him up late because they had him last year and he was productive in the postseason. I think that suggests a lot about the quality of the backs. But to answer Sarah's question, yes. I mean, why not just try anybody else at this point? And Jesse outlined the strengths of Ronald Jones, back in March or so. Like, there is a strength there that is exactly what I don't think the Chiefs are getting enough out of, which is short yardage situations. I mean, Blair, how many times when the Chiefs have 3rd and short do I look at you and it's like, well, it'd be better if they were 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 here probably than 3rd and 1.
Well, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, the telltale sign was the Michael Burton run. He's been successful 100% of the time in his Chiefs career getting that one, and they didn't get it in his last time. Having said that, I do want to caution, like, this is Chiefs' first world problems, right? Like, they've converted 50% of their third downs this year. Like, it's second in the NFL. So they're still pretty good. And if you could pick a really good pass game or a really good run game, you'd pick a really good pass game. You saw why this last game against Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee could run it for a little bit, but the Chiefs could pass it and figured out a way down the stretch, and you have a great quarterback. So, but the elephant in the room to me, Sam, is we talk about it. For us, it's real simple. Just elevate, well, not elevate, but he's on the active roster, but make Ronald Jones, put him in there, see what you got. Well, you've already got a fullback, and then you've already got your 3 running backs. Who are you deactivating on game day to have that happen? And what kind of statement is it, or can you do it to Clyde Edwards-Helaire? You know what I mean? So this is sort of the danger you get into when you draft a first-round running back, is you are tied to that back. And right now, they can't cut Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They can't deactivate him on game day without it being a huge deal. So they're sort of just stuck with him on the roster. And that's sort of the opportunity cost we talk about when we talk about first-round running backs. You have to nail it. If you don't nail it, you are committing yourself to a resource. And right now, the Chiefs are committing themselves to this resource. It's probably the reason Ronald Jones is not in there.
I think the Chiefs and Andy Reid are waiting for one of the running backs to get hurt, and that's then elevate Rojo. Well, and listen, we've gone overboard, and I really have enjoyed the conversation with you guys and with Jesse Newell and Sam McDowell. We'll bid farewell for today, and we will rejoin the conversation. I wanted to get to Harrison Butker. We didn't have a chance to do that today. We'll see where that stands with the Jaguars game on Sunday, whether he's if this malaise continues for Butker or whether he has solved it. So that'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production crew of Monty Davis, George Howard, Randy Mason, and Jeff Rosen. Tip of the cap to Sam McDowell, Jesse Newell, and Herbie Teope for sharing their insights. 43 pages in today's morning sports edition, best digital sports page in America. Check it out at liveedition.com. sports.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City every day.